What is going on, YouTube? Got a special little custom build today. This is special to me. It's the first time somebody's reached out to me and asked them to make them a car. I was contacted by Stuff and More Hot Wheels, and they asked if I could build them a ride. So I said I would, and here we go. They asked for a new Ford Mustang to be customized with their logo. And you know what? I'm going to take a crack at it and see what I can do. But first, let's get this thing out of here so it can breathe and see what we're working with. It's kind of cool. Not a bad casting. Coil suspension? Is that what that says? Yeah, sweet. So, I don't know if they wanted this for the track or what, but we will work on it and get it to where they want it to be. After drilling out the posts, I take the car completely apart, and then it's time to go over the body of the car with the Citrus Strip stripping gel and get all that orange paint and those funky tampos off of there. There's several different ways to use the stripping gel. I just use a brush and go over the entire body of the car, and once it looks like this, it's time to wash it with some warm soapy water and go over it with some steel wool. I wasn't quite sure what paint I was going to use on this car, and for that matter I wasn't sure what paint job I was going to use, so I wanted to make sure the body was perfect, and I went over it with some rubbing compound in the Dremel and got it looking all shiny and ready for some paint. I also painted the base of the car, which this would end up being the undercoat for the paint I ended up using. As usual, I'm using white Rust-Oleum sandable primer, and I'm going to be using the Duplicolor metal cast and Krylon bright white. Stuff and More Hot Wheels asked that their logo be on the car, but I don't have a printer that prints nearly at a high enough quality to make decent decals. So I reached out to the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Dave Akers, and asked him if he'd be willing to help me out with this project. Dave came up with these decals that were absolutely perfect and worked excellent for what I wanted to do. Thank you, Dave. Much appreciated. And if you haven't, go check out Dave's channel for some awesome custom videos. I'm not sure what happened to the video showing the actual paint job in progress, but this is the paint scheme I went with. I figured the red and white would work well with the logo from Stuff and More, and it actually turned out really well. And as usual, I'm using the micro set to help place the decal down. I'm not using micro sol anymore. I typically just go with the micro set, and I found that the micro sol kind of has a reaction with clear coats and paint, so I'm kind of staying away from that until I try out a few other paints. And once the decals are set in place, I use a wet paper towel to press it down, which allows the decal to sit into the body lines of the car. And you can see right here, these are some very high quality decals that Dave Akers did, and they worked out perfectly. It's the small details that matter, and it's what sets these cars apart. So I'm using a chrome pin to make a chrome gas cap, and I'm using a toothpick with some ink from a red paint pen to make the rear tail lights. I found that using a toothpick is a really good way to get into all those little nooks and crannies and help detail the car. It's time to get this car back together. I'm using my 256 by 3/16 screws and my .05 Allen hex driver. I didn't get too crazy with this build. I didn't add any weight or anything like that. I did work on the wheels and axles a little bit to make sure it rolled pretty well. But other than that, it's pretty much stock with a pretty sweet new paint job. And now it is time for the moment of truth. Let's see how it all turned out. Oh yeah, I am really pleased with the way this turned out actually. I painted the base to match the red stripes, and I went over the Mustang emblem on the grill with the chrome pin to make it pop a little bit, and I'm really pleased with this. It turned out really well. I'm only 5 minutes into an 11-minute video. What the heck? I didn't plan that out very well. Let's see if I got another one of these laying around. Well, as it turns out, I do. So let's make them a second car. All the initial steps are exactly the same. I'm using the Duplicolor metal cast paint, and I'm using 3M masking tape to create the Super Sport stripes. After I have the tape on there, I went over the car with Krylon metallic aluminum. This stuff works fantastic for an undercoat for the Duplicolor metal cast paints, and I pretty much use it all the time when I use these Duplicolor paints. Once the metallic paint dried, I went over it with the Duplicolor metal cast blue. And now I'm using all those skills I gained by playing Operation as a kid to try and remove this tape without ruining the paint. The 3M tape is a little bit more expensive than your normal masking tape, but it is perfect for situations exactly like this. If you want to have clean, crisp edges, the 3M tape is the way to go. Fortunately, I left enough tape hanging off that it was pretty easy to grab onto with the tweezers when it came time to remove the tape. I initially had a different paint scheme planned for this car, but after my 5th attempt at trying to make that paint scheme work, I decided to go with this, and I will say both these Mustangs fought me from the get-go, and probably two of my most frustrating customs ever. I placed the decals on the car, and the red and blue just didn't quite look right, and there needed to be something kind of breaking them up. So I decided to go over the edges of the red and blue with the chrome pin and kind of break it up and set it aside. I did this freehand, and it kind of shows, but ultimately I think it turned out pretty well. I painted the base on this one, and I did a wheel swap, as I don't know where the original wheels went. So I dove into my spare wheel bin and found some that fit, and they actually look pretty good. The car's all put back together, and time to see how it all turned out. Wow, I'm actually very pleased with this one too. As difficult as both these Mustangs were, and how it seemed like nothing ever went right on either one of these builds, I think they both turned out really, really well. I'm very pleased with both of them. I would have liked to see the chrome pin be a little bit cleaner, but it actually looks okay. It's consistent, I'll say that, but I think they look pretty good together. These cars are going to two pretty awesome hot rodders, so they're gonna have to duke it out for which one they want, and I'm sure they will have them go flying down the track at some point. Neither one of these have any added weight, but I did work on the wheels of both of them to make sure they were rolling pretty well. Hopefully Stuffing More Hot Wheels is pleased with these, and I must say, if not requested, I probably never would have attempted to customize these cars. It's just, I don't typically do the modern cars other than the Fire Chicken Camaro I did. I pretty much stick to the older 50s, 60s, 70s cars and all that. But it was something different, something new, so I appreciate that, and thank you, Stuffing More Hot Wheels, for challenging me with this build and asking me for a custom Hot Wheel. It's pretty flattering, and hopefully I lived up to your expectations. And the final paint jobs that you're seeing on these cars is probably my 6th and 7th attempt at painting these cars. Like I said, I was just having all kinds of problems. I had both these cars finished twice, and I sprayed the clear coat on it, and for some reason the clear coat ate the paint away on both of them, and had to start over. And then I just had all kinds of other issues, and finally got them done, and you know what, they turned out pretty well, and persistence pays off, and I was finally able to get them done. So Stuffing More Hot Wheels actually requested these cars, I don't know, several months ago now, probably 3 months ago. So because it took so long, I actually made a couple more cars for them. I figured go back to what I know and get back to these old 60s muscle cars. So I made this one for them also, and you just can't leave it with an odd number. So I also have this one, the Shelby Boss Mustang. All 90 grams of this thing, added weight. It's got some polished wheels. And if you wanted to maybe race this thing on some mountain, or a race mountain, if you will, you might want to send it over there. So there it is, the Stuff and More Hot Wheels stable of Mustangs. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below with what you think. Go check out Stuff and More Hot Wheels YouTube page for some awesome racing. And go check out Dave Akers' YouTube page for some fantastic customs. And we will see you on the next one.